Welcome into the Lantern Sports Men's Basketball Preview Show. I'm your host, Casey Smith, joined as always by Gabe Burggraf. Ohio State, they have two matchups in this week. They're facing off against Charleston Southern Thursday, and they have almost a week turnaround before they face the Eastern Illinois Panthers. Gabe, the other night we saw Ohio State come away with a convincing victory against Robert Morris in their season opener. The freshmen at one point were all four on the floor at the same time. That's got to be a scary sight for Chris Holtmann and that coaching staff, just with, some of the mistakes that freshmen can make in that learning curve adjusting to college basketball.
Absolutely. And, I liked what I saw offensively, especially from Bryce Sensabaugh, shooting the ball and getting to the rim with general ease in transition. You also saw Felix Okpara dominating the paint defensively. Bruce Thornton, leading the charge and kind of distributing the ball well. And Roddy Gale fitting in well, too, with some of those lineups, with some of those older guys. They're all going to fit in and kind of play a little bit of different basketball as the year progresses. And I think, like we said, these guys are going to have to do that. And it's something that, like you said, Holtmann is going to be a little wary of. A couple turnovers, a little bit of malfunction offensively in getting into the offense. But with speed, which is what we've seen from them, that's something to look forward to for the Buckeyes that really hasn't been there in the last couple of years.
Right, and I think you talk about the last couple of years, players like Nietzsche Johnson coming in and being young freshmen, kind of getting sped up by the game. Obviously not for Malachi Branham, who was one and done. He was able to adjust, especially with that 35-point performance last year on the road against Nebraska. I don't know if we'll see that this year. We saw 17 from Bryce Sensabaugh, which is pretty dang good for opening to college basketball. Introduce yourself to Columbus and the Ohio State Buckeye Nation in a pretty good way, right? But it'll be interesting to see how they kind of adjust into their roles. I saw Bruce Thornton sort of as a guy that can dish it. I think he had 10 the other night. But he can sort of facilitate the offense. Him and Isaac Likely. Bryce Sensabaugh, like you mentioned, having good ball skills. I see Roddy Gale. He played tremendous defense. Not only in the exhibition against Chaminade, but also the other night against Robert Morris. And Felix Okpara, you'd like to see him get a little bit more skill on the offensive end. But that'll kind of start to fill out.
Right.
If Chris Holtmann hopes, as he hopes.
Right.
You see Jack Owens going through the padded drills with the bigs down low before the game. So, if he can develop that skill on the offensive end, great. But I think his sort of role is going to adjust as a sort of that defensive secondary option behind Zed Key coming off the bench.
Right.
But you look at Ohio State's experience, guys like Justice Suing, Tanner Holden as well in the transfer portal, Sean McNeil, Isaac Likely, as I previously mentioned. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to give them the keys to success, give these freshmen the keys to success. And they each kind of have individual skills of their own, right, Gabe?
Right, and going off that, keys to the car. Those guys are going to drive the car with the freshmen in the back seat. Doesn't mean that the freshmen from time to time aren't going to take a kind of slice off that road trip to kind of make this season more bearable, as they're going to have to play Big Ten opponents. And a tough non-conference, the Buckeyes chose to play these games, and they're going to have to go and compete.
Right, and I think it's really interesting, the sort of the 1-2 combo between Justice Suing and Tanner Holden really running the point and being the primary ball handlers, and people that can go get you a bucket when needed. Justice Suing, obviously, redshirt senior year, coming back off that injury that kept him out for most of the season, only played in 2 games last year. Now he's coming back, and he had 20 the other night.
He looked great the other night.
Yes, he looked like he was back to his regular Justice Suing self,
Right.
But, Tanner Holden comes off the bench, and I believe he had 10 or 12. So just sort of that complementary option in playing complementary basketball. I think Tanner Holden is the 6th man to watch this year for the Buckeyes. And he's sort of, in a way, the guy that's really going to kind of rally the troops when the starters need to come out, they need to sit, they need to take their breathers. He's going to be sort of the guy to sort of rally things. And I think sort of playing in that experience will really help this young team. And, cleaning up the rebounding, cleaning up the defense, that'll sort of work itself out against Charleston Southern. You can assume it'll work itself out. Charleston Southern had 54 rebounds in their opener. Ohio State had 48, I believe. But I mean, those are the two things that Ohio State really needs to clean up before, like you mentioned, this top non-conference schedule where they're playing in the Maui Invitational against the 19th ranked San Diego State. They have Duke on the road.
At Cameron, yeah.
Duke's going to have revenge on their minds after Ohio State upset them last year. In
Absolutely.
That thrilling game last year. And then also the CBS Sports Classic facing North Carolina, last year's runner-up. So, I mean, Ohio State, right now, their focus is on Charleston Southern, Thursday at the Schottenstein Center, and Eastern Illinois Wednesday at the Schottenstein Center as well. But for now, this has been the Lantern Sports Preview for men's basketball. For Gabe Burggraf, I'm your host, Casey Smith. Until next time, take care.